Alright, hey guys, my name's Alex. Welcome to the Oddball Odyssey. I'm here with Troy. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Troy Heesch. I'm the host of a podcast called the Primitive State Podcast. It's kind of like a JRE kind of vibe, I guess. I just kind of like have people on I think are interesting or funny and talk to them. I'm really happy that you brought me onto this podcast, though, because I'm really interested in the cryptid stuff. I think it's really interesting, whether or not it's real or not real, or what is real or not real in that sphere. So yeah, no, I'm really excited to jump into some stuff. I'm really excited for you to teach me some stuff because I'm not super learned on it, but I know it's a little bit.
Yeah, I know like a little bit of a lot of different ones. I don't know if I could put everything cohesively right now, but yeah, starting when I was young, there was a show on Disney called So Weird, I think it was, that like every week they had something else happen that was like ghosts or aliens or Bigfoot. So that was my introduction to like the strange and the weird, and ever since then I've always kind of had an interest in it. One of the ones that have always stuck me was werewolves and Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And then the last couple of years there was a whole thing about dogmen. That's also interesting, another rabbit hole to go deep dive into.
Yeah, the dogman thing is interesting because like you'll see, it'll be like someone will be looking outside like their glass window pane or something like that, and they just see like a dude who's upright, but they're hairy and like they kind of have a doggish vibe to them, I guess. Like,
yeah, with like the eye shine, or they're just standing like top on the glass. Some people say there could be creatures called fear eaters, and that's a form they take just to kind of scare you, kind of like Pennywise.
Oh, sure.
But they obviously they might not eat you. They live on that fear, so they just come up, top on the glass, scare you, and then leave or chase you. So some people stories are that they'd be walking and this thing would chase them, and they would feel it almost grab the back of their necks, but nothing will ever happen. They'll get to a point where they can't run anymore. They look behind, and it's like nowhere to be seen. It's like something just chased me. I heard the claws on the concrete and whatnot.
You know what's interesting is like and I don't know what is or isn't true in regard to this, but like I would hear things like demons or evil entities like that. They can scare you. They can like almost manifest right in front of you, but they can't actually harm you. And I don't know how true that is or not. But I've
heard something like that with like Native Americans, well, supposedly Native American stories, that they don't engage with you unless you engage with them in like combat. So unless you act upon them in an aggressive way, they most likely will leave you alone. But there are other stories of these things just mauling people to death. Like was it the land in, between the lakes? There's a few stories of these things attacking people down there in Tennessee, Kentucky.
Is that the one? And I might be thinking of a different one, but there was some story I heard where it was like something like hit these guys' car, and they didn't know what the fuck it was. It was like at night or something like that. And they're in the woods, I think. And at one point, something like really slashed the side of the car. And then when they went to go check, there were like these 3 claw marks. And they got face to face with whatever this thing was, and they like kind of tried to like scare it off somehow. And I think it pissed them off because the story is that later that night, the guy who was the one who instigated pissing off whatever it was, he was found like mauled to death in his bed.
I haven't heard that one, but there are stories of that and Bigfoot, people being parked somewhere and something just coming up and ramming their car.
Yeah.
I have heard people cars being attacked like as they're driving and then trying to swipe at it. But yeah, there was one I heard. Do you follow Tony Merkel and the Confessionals?
I've seen a few.
Yeah, there was one. I think they were talking about a guy from the LBL. Something similar. He saw this thing kind of crawling around, and he took a shot at it, hit it, it ran off. But then he called like the buddies, like, "Hey, this thing is trying to get in my house." And they heard like a scream and a couple more shots. And by the time they got there, all they found was like a foot or something.
Oh, dude, you know what? I might be mixing up 2 stories, and that's the one I was thinking about.
Was it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because
yeah,
the one I hear a lot is like a camping story of a family being mauled to death in like a camper. I don't know how much of that is real or not, but that's another open legend surrounding them.
Well, dude, like, and I've talked about this a little bit on my podcast. I try not to talk about too much on my podcast, but this is like the perfect place to talk about it.
Yeah.
So like when I was 23, so like 12 years ago, my sister was like 33 at the time or something like that. And this is like around the time my dad is in the hospital. He's like in hospice. He's kind of like on his way out.
Mm-hmm.
And I like walk out of my room because I'm like getting ready to go out. And my sister's in the kitchen, my brother and my mom, and they're like having like this really serious talk. And I'm like, what is this about? And I just go into the kitchen. I'm not saying anything. I'm just kind of listening. And my sister is going into this thing about how since she was 3 years old, she was taught, when she was 3, she was taught by entities, a good entity named Good Marge and a bad entity named Bad Marge, which everyone, when she would bring this up, assumed it was imaginary friends.
Mm-hmm.
But the things that they would tell her were like things that a 3-year-old shouldn't necessarily come up on with their own, like like specific ways on how to tell if someone's good or bad. Like they'd be like these like weird like little tells that they would educate her on, and like how to figure it out when it comes to people and spirits. And so she tells us that ever since she was 3, she's been able to communicate with spirit guides like her entire life. And it's interesting because like she would pinpoint, she was the one who like somehow knew that our grandpa had died, like without anyone knowing. Like she had known there's like a few of these like weird examples. And so I thought at the time, because I was pretty atheist at the time, I was like, this is probably complete bullshit. And then the more and more she started like calling things in all of our lives, the more it was getting kind of strange. And so then she started teaching us how to communicate with spirit guides with the totems. And so in the past few months, I've become like pretty Christian. And the more and more I was reading the Bible, it would be like every few books, there'd be like this thing that pops out that's like, and remember, don't use predictive magics, because any sort of predictive magics, it's not coming from God. It's coming from a bad source. Like, you just got to avoid all that. And the more and more I was reading that, it would just pop up every once in a while. It's just like, damn. Because, like, that's kind of like what you do when you talk to these spirit guys. You're like, oh, if I do so-and-so thing, is it going to end in this result? If I do so-and-so thing. So it's like, I was like, shit, am I talking to demons? Like, it was like one of those things where I was like, fuck. So I just completely stopped doing that. I wasn't doing it like all the time or anything, but it was one of those things where it would be like, once a month I might pop in and ask a few questions or something like that. And but one thing that was interesting was for years, I mean, I've been doing it off and on for like 10 years. I've had weird fucking encounters. Like, I'm sure you know about like the Hat Man.
I have.
Okay, I don't know if this was the Hat Man, but not only me, but my brother saw this a different night, a couple nights later, I think. But, dude, have you ever seen the movie Get Out?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you happen to remember the black guy? The black guy with, like, the round straw hat?
I think so. He gets, like, his picture taken and he kind of snaps out a little bit.
Yeah, okay. So picture that guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
With a huge, huge grin. Same hat, 9 feet tall. I'm napping in my bed. I wake up, I see this thing grinning at me with like the biggest smile you've ever seen in your life. And I am freaking out. I would have this thing, and I think it's tied to some sort of weird form of narcolepsy, or maybe it's the spirit stuff. I don't know, but
some people.
Every once in a while,
sorry, no. I was just gonna say some people associate that maybe with like sleep paralysis and stuff.
So I'll get into that. So, but I would have this thing where it may be one of those things where it's like I'm coming out of a dream sort of situation, which was a lot of what I'm about to explain. So I would see things like birds or something like that, like playing with my wall, or like one time I saw a huge scorpion in the corner of my eye. I mean, huge, like ball out.
That's something I've heard people talk about, like spiders coming at them.
Yeah, and so, but what would happen in those situations, I would look at it for like 5-10 seconds, and it would just kind of like fade away. And then, but I think that would happen for whatever reason, like if I'm stressed in my life or something. But anyway, so back to when I'm waking up from my nap and I see this 9-foot-tall maybe demon thing. I'm thinking, oh, this is just a really scary version of whatever I always have every once in a while. And so it's not going away. And so I jump up like on my bed in a fighting position. It's still not going away. And I'm thinking to myself, do I have to jump kick a 9-foot-tall whatever the fuck this is just to live, I guess? And so as soon as I'm about to launch off my bed, probably into the wall, it's gone. It vanishes. And so then I'm like, well, that was one of the scariest things I've ever experienced. And then like a couple nights later, my brother, he's sleeping with the door open, and he sees a 9-foot-tall fucking thing with a hat on. He can't get like the exact figure, and he bellows, "Get the fuck out of my house!" And when he bellows, it was like as soon as he yelled, it was like the sound just like pushed that thing out. And then we cleaned the house, like constantly.
Oh yeah, that probably was my reaction.
Yeah.
See, but that kind of reminds me of the confessionals. Tony Moko, he just had one either Tuesday or last Tuesday, because that's when he uploads the new ones. Of this lady, that's kind of something similar. Like they had spirit guides, and what she was saying was, you gotta be careful with them because they'd be all good and treat you right, but as soon as you try to go towards God or just kind of be like, no, I'm done, that's when the evil side comes out and they start messing with you.
Dude,
but
I've always chalked this up to whether it be me fucking with the totem, like on accident, just because I'm like freaked out or something. But after I became a Christian, I summoned a spirit, and I was like, "Are you mad at me?" And it was like, unequivocally, yeah.
Yeah, they get really pissed when you turn away from them.
Yeah, and I got that sense, and I just want it for when and I shouldn't have gotten that sense, because in my mind I'm like, well, you guys are like the forces of good, so why would I even be weird about bringing up that I believe in God now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But there was that thing where there was like this weird thing inside of me where I was like, this isn't going to go over well.
Yeah. To bring Tony up, a few times on a couple different episodes, they bring up the Nephilim, that maybe they're essentially the first demons, because when they died, whether before or during the flood, they had nowhere to go. They couldn't go up or down, so they just kind of stayed here. And maybe that could be some of the shadow people see, some of like the deities around different religions.
Well, you'll hear like people talking about how they'll find like fucking, and it's funny because like I didn't know about.
And they're supposed to be like, you know, massive too, so like the whole 9 foot kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and like a lot of people think that like Goliath was probably a Nephilim, like especially if
descendant.
If you read the Berean Holy Bible, it's like closer to like the Hebrew translation.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, the David and Goliath story is way crazier than any other translation has put it, because they kind of made it seem like, I don't know, that Goliath wasn't as tall as he was, where he's actually like enormous. Like he's bigger than 9 feet. Like he's like stories tall or something. It's something insane. But the way it happens is God says, I don't want you to ask for armor. All I want you to do is pick a stone, and the stone that you're going to pick is going to be the one that's going to fucking fly through that thing's head. And so he just trusted in picking up this rock, and he hurled it as hard as he could, and because it had God's power in it, it just blasted through that giant's head.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's like, the way it's kind of presented though in like the original Bible, it's like, oh, he was just a really big, Goliath was just this really big human. It's like he's actually like a giant, like he's enormous.
Yeah, like do you know the One-on-One podcast?
No.
Well, he dives into like alchemy and stuff, and that was the point he brought up when he was on the confessionals one time. Is that that God essentially transmuted that stone to be a lot deadlier than what it should have been.
That's right.
And again, you're talking about translations. People think that he got like a brand new sword, but if you go back to like the original translations, there really isn't a translation for it. It's just a new weapon.
Yeah, no, and in fact, I think it's almost insinuated that he's offered a sword, and he's like, no, I'm good.
I know.
Grab this stone.
Some people say that, maybe he wasn't a true believer because he was told to get one stone, but then he picks up like a handful or something.
Yeah.
But either way, I think it just proves, man's fallible.
Yeah.
Regardless.
I might be wrong. It has been like a bit since I read that, but like I think in the Marine he does just take one stone. I think I might be wrong.
Yeah, because they bring up like, if he really trusted and believed in God, he won't just grab the one stone. But
right.
I'm under the impression that kind of like if you get it in the ballpark, I'll make sure he dies. So you might need more than one stone.
Yeah.
To kind of like get it, within the parameter, kind of like wanted. As long as you're getting close, I'll make it hit. Cove the bullet.
Yeah. Man, yeah. Dude, the Nephilim stuff is wild.
Yeah, because another podcast I got into is called the Bump Podcast, and he goes into the was it Lilith, the mythology of Lilith, that she wasn't the first wife of Adam, but maybe one of the wives of the Watchers, like the head Watcher, Samael, who he thinks might have become Satan. So like the Dogman, Bigfoot, all the other giants, Nephilim can be traced back to Lilith.
I kind of am curious about the. Okay, have you read Genesis by chance?
No, I really haven't done much.
Okay.
Deep dive into reading the Bible myself.
Yeah. So in Genesis, you know how like there's like the serpent and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like everyone in their head pictures the serpent as a snake, like just a regular snake. But when you get further into Genesis, or like the beginning of it, God's like, no longer are you going to be able to like walk on two legs. No longer are you going to have two arms. You're going to crawl on your belly because you've deceived these two people. And so snakes, or whatever this was, whether it be Satan, as some people think, or not.
Yeah, Satan, Lucifer. Some people go back and forth because depending on how you interpret the Bible, it could go either way. Yeah,
but it's interesting because it's like, what if there were more of like those kinds of? Granted, maybe I'm going down this path wrong, because if he changed that for that snake, he said all snakes ever. Because I was like, what if there are like, if there are Nephilim out there? What if there are like these weird snake creatures out there? But now I'm thinking about it, he changed it for all snakes.
Well, because it makes me think of, was it Quetzalcoatl, the Aztec god? That's a big feathered serpent. So maybe that plays into the idea of like the Watchers or these Nephilim essentially becoming the ancient gods that we know of like Egypt, Greece, Aztec, Hindu, India, and stuff.
Well, yeah, and like, from Christian teachings, the way they, and maybe even Muslims, like the way they present it is, it's like, if you're talking about any other god under case G, lowercase g, those are just demonic forces. There's only one God. Like, so that would be very interesting if like all these other like idols are actually just like Satan's influence.
Yeah, some people were talking that I heard. I think it was was it Pop Culture Crisis with Marion Brett? They had on Aiden Mattis that does the Lower Lodge, and he was talking about, in the Bible, there's not really good and evil. It's just God and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much right. And like, yeah, because it's actually kind of crazy, because the way I've looked at the spiritual division ever since reading the Bible is completely different than I ever had thought. So like, when they start talking about Lucifer and stuff in the Bible, they pretty much make it apparent that, you know how like there's that saying like a hell on earth, that kind of thing? I'm starting to think that's more accurate a description than people think. I think that hell is actually much closer to Earth than heaven is. And the reason I say that is because it's very apparent, and God even says as much, that the ruler of Earth is Satan. Like, he basically blatantly says that. He's like, this is pretty much like Satan's domain. I am here to, like, kind of be like a watcher. He has his powers here. And you can be seduced by them, you can go down the wrong path from them, and you can maybe even call on them. And it really opened up my mind to this idea that it's like we have this Earth, this like three-dimensional world, and then perhaps beyond that veil right beyond the veil isn't necessarily God, but maybe beyond those veils there's God. But beyond that veil, maybe that's hell, maybe that's Satan, maybe that's Jesus.
I don't know if, because, was it like Alex Jones says there's like 12 or 13 different dimensions. So if there's a being that could be up there, I would say that's pretty much God, as far as we know. But I've heard people say the positive goes up and the negative goes down. So maybe that could be something similar. That's why it's easier to contact demonic spirits, because they are closer than angelic, which would be kind of higher up.
I think that's right. That's what really made me go, I don't think I'm going to fuck with like spirit guide stuff, because I was just like, it just makes too much sense that there would be a closer direct line to the Prince of Earth or whatever, versus like God and like heaven. Even like, because God, it's crazy, because like I never knew there was a difference between the kingdom of God and the kingdom of heaven. Like it's actually almost, I don't want to say this almost, but it's almost insulting, because it's like you die, you go to heaven, and then it's like, well, this is this whole other thing. Like,
well, it's like not too strange. Well, was it Jacob who goes up the ladder? Yeah, I think he says there's 3 different heavens, like 3 different inner circles. So it kind of makes sense. You have heaven as a whole, and then like the innermost one would be kind of like God's throne room, temple, whatever.
I just hate that there's a centralized government. But that's it's interesting though. I never once even considered that. I just thought God hung out in heaven.
Yeah. I think we live in a kind of like multi-layered thing. Did you ever watch Gravity Falls?
No, but I heard it's good.
Yeah, my kids got into it after it came out, but they have this scene later on where they have like an infinity die, and it's constantly like shifting it and stuff. So that if you can look up an image of that and then mix it with like a classic tesseract that's collapsing, I kind of feel like that's more of an accurate description of kind of like the Earth or our reality. It's all kind of interconnected. That's why I think like ley lines or like the missing 411, I think people could just pop into another reality the way space and time kind of folds.
And I mean, there's a lot of conspiracies involving, that's what dreaming is. Like, that's what, a lot
Tony Mokel brings that up, that dreaming could be a portal, just like certain books, if you write it correctly.
I used to be really interested in like watching people's DMT trip reports and things like that. And like, do you know what DMT is?
Yeah, I know DMT.
Okay. So, and like I would always come across these stories where it's 2 people and they smoke DMT at the same time, and they will describe from their point of view the exact same thing that is happening in front of him happened in front of this person, but from their point of view. And so they're literally lining up the same exact story from them just being high. And it made me wonder, because DMT, is obviously that chemical in your brain that gets released when you start dreaming. And that almost lends a lot of credibility to the idea that you are going somewhere. Because it's almost like if these people can really tie together like this cohesive story that they both at the same exact time while under the influence experience, it makes me think that they were in a space,
Yeah, I heard that with shrooms, people having the same trip, but also in dreams. There was one story I heard, I think it was siblings. one was waking up from the dream, the other one was going into the dream, and they kind of like passed each other in like this kind of like doorway or hallway kind of a thing, and that would be trippy.
Yeah.
Seeing your sibling, you waking up and they're going to bed.
Yeah, dude. It's just, that's just so crazy. And like, I work with a guy, and obviously I won't go into too many details, but I work with this guy who, he'll constantly tell me like crazy shit, and I don't know what is or isn't true about it, but he'll talk about how he'll every single time he dreams, he astral projects into like these different places, and he talks to these entities and all this other shit. But the entity this is a dude who didn't know what DMT was or anything like that. He's like this 53-year-old like war vet who just isn't into that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he's telling me like he's talking to like these blue entities and stuff like that, I'm just like, oh, that's actually like a lot like what I've heard from like DMT trip reports. People will like see like these like weird blue entities and stuff.
I've heard of like the purple lady.
Yeah. And he's just like, what the hell is DMT? And when he said that, I was just like, that's bonkers. Mm-hmm. Like that you're not just lying to me or something or drawing from something. Yeah. But, dude, that is a trip. Because, like, he also has a story. He has tons of stories that are crazy. But, like, one of which he tells me that is since the cryptid space, where him and his, like, cousins are hunting on the Apache reservation, illegally, obviously. And they see a deer. Like, they're on the other side of the road. There's no cars coming either way. They see a deer, like, on the edge of the forest on the other side. And the cousin takes aim, and as soon as he's about to shoot, right next to the deer, supposedly, there is an Indian, a Native American man, in all white, like war paint, and he's like looking at them. And they take the shot. It misses the deer. It almost hits the Indian. The Indian shocked, disappears. So they're like freaking out. They don't know what the fuck's going on. I don't know. This didn't make any sense to me. He's kind of crazy. But, like, he goes, well, so obviously we went to the police. And we just told them everything. What happened, we almost shot this Indian guy. We were shooting a deer, and it just didn't go well. And he said that when he's in the precinct telling everyone this, do you ever see American Werewolf in London?
Yeah.
You remember, like, the beginning of that movie when, like, they go into, like, the bar and, like, they're just like, oh, yeah, we found, like, these crazy dogs that were just, like, fucking with us. And, like, the entire bar goes silent because they're like, oh, shit. Like,
no, I want to say they ask about the pentagram on the wall and then everybody goes silent.
Yeah, okay, that's right, yeah. So, but it was a similar vibe where it was just like, as soon as he's just like, yeah, we almost shot like this Native American man, and he just disappeared. As soon as he said that, the entire precinct supposedly just went like dead silent. And then a chief, it felt like a movie. Like a chief came out of like his office. He's like, fellas, I'm gonna need you to come with me. And so like they go into his office. And he's just like, you're really lucky you didn't hit that Native American man, because what you just saw was a blah blah Indian ghost guy. And he had like a specific term for it. And he was just like, and had you hit him, I wouldn't be talking to either of you boys right now. Let me just tell you that right now. And so the cousin is freaking out about this. My guy I worked with loves it. And, like, so the cousin's just like, or the chief's like, you boys want, I'll let you guys come down to my huge log cabin where we're hunting werewolves. And so the cousin's like, no way, man, fuck that. I'm going back to the hotel. And so, like, well, or fuck, I might cut that. Oh, it's yours.
Yeah, I could try and find that and cut that if you want.
Thanks, man. Yeah. So he's just like, oh, no, I'm going to stay. And so he goes to this lodge, and they're, like, on the second balcony, and they're just waiting. And they're, like, looking at, like, the edge of this forest. And he, like, the chief, like, looks at his watch, and he's just like, yeah, it's about that time. About that time we're going to see him. And supposedly, about 5 lycanthropes come out, and you first saw them from the glow of their eyes coming from the forest.
Mm-hmm.
And they all come out, and there's like, it's go time. And I don't remember the specifics of the weaponry. I don't know if you even told me, but supposedly they laid waste to like a bunch of werewolves.
I would imagine it would have to be a big caliber, because I've heard that sometimes that certain shots they can't basically like brush them off. But there was one story I heard of a trucker seeing one kind of like running alongside the truck, and he had like a 45 Magnum, really big caliber, and just blew its head off.
Yeah. Damn, dude. So at least you don't need silver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say the confessionals. He had an early episode of a dude. A lot of people got mad, but he said that he basically shot a Bigfoot too, killed it instantly. I think it was just a regular trailblades because he was hunting, laying in like this bush, hidden, but this thing kind of kept approaching it. It was one of those red-headed ones that was supposedly more aggressive. And yeah, once he got like 10, 15 feet from him, he just shot, killed it.
Well, here's my question, man. If you're someone who shot and killed a Bigfoot, and you're like, I've never seen a creature like this, it's got to be a Bigfoot, or it's got to be something that no one's ever seen before, aren't you going to be like, we're going to get this in front of someone? Like,
well, I think the story goes, I don't know if he ever took pictures, but he called the police or like the game warden, but by the time they showed up and then went back, the body was gone. So it's just, but they said like you can't be shooting those things. They're like endangered or protected. You can't be doing that.
Yeah, they're definitely endangered.
Yeah.
I don't even know they exist.
But I mean, that's a whole conspiracy with like the national parks.
Whoa, that would be weird.
Have you heard anything about that?
No.
Yeah, some people connect it back all the way to like Teddy Roosevelt, since he created the national park system, that he may have had an encounter in like Yellowstone, and so that's what he created it as, like a containment kind of a thing. Like, we know these things are out there, let's make sure they don't kind of escape, but also if people go in, we know what's there and we can kind of get them back, which also I think adds to like the 411, because I think David Politis is a true Bigfoot believer.
Dude, that would be so crazy to think about. Like, what if there's like, you know, like there's your regular national park workers or whatever that you would normally see, but what if there's like there's teams in the United States of national park workers whose specific like job is to like make sure that like Bigfoot are like keeping out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to talk to some people that work in parks that by like big clusters of like sightings and stuff. But I don't know if they will really talk to anybody.
Or even if like a regular national park guard had ever even heard of something like that, like within their industry, you know, like other people they had talked to, where they're just like, oh man, I was on this really weird job where like we had to make sure there weren't like these massive like man-ape, footprints.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of the footprints, people bring that up about like the Nephilim. That's why they kind of like phase in and out, walk behind a tree, disappear. You follow the footsteps and they just end abruptly.
The first time I ever even heard of Nephilim was maybe like a year or two ago on Twitter, and I was like baffled by it. But like I had seen like, the only reason I knew about it was someone had posted this video of like their footprints,
mm-hmm.
and I was like, that has to be like a sculpture someone made or something, like something, because like it was literally like you could lay in it. It was like a 6 foot like footprints.
I know. I've been bringing up the confessionals, but he had one of a guy. His family comes from Qatar, I think, where they have like Kandahar, when they have like the story of like the Kandahar giants, the red-headed giants. And he said his father went out one day and he was like 5'5", and he saw a big footprint that he pretty much could lay in it. And his grandma, it would be, the dude's mom was like, I told you not to go out there at certain times. She would leave offerings by like this big cave, sheeps and stuff. It's crazy. Are you still there? You look frozen. Oh, there you go.
You're good now. Oh yeah, you were frozen on my end too. Okay.
Oh yeah, I don't know what happened other than the internet. But yeah, that would be crazy to walk on up to a footprint that's like 5 feet long.
Yeah, that'd be baffling. And like, here's the thing though, it's like a lot. You have the people. It's like a spectrum where it's like you have the people who are on one spectrum on the far end, where it's like they'll believe, like the Eddie Bravos, where it's like they'll believe absolutely every single conspiracy that gets put in front of them. Then you have the other side where it's nothing. Like there's none of this could be possibly real. But the thing is, there's just way too many threads where it's like if you're pulling on all these threads, something's gonna get like loose. Like something's gonna get loose, and there is a truth in something. Like, and I think maybe it has to do with the UFOs. I don't know. What's your stance on that? Like the whole UAP thing and all that.
Well, I like to think that they're all other life in the universe, whether you go from a biblical perspective that, God created life on other planets, that's why everything's kind of humanoid. Maybe they do have a space Jesus,
Yeah, okay. I've always had this theory that, and I hope it's true, where we have like the human Holy Bible, and it's just one volume out of like
millions, thousands.
Yeah, tons. Yeah.
Yeah, so they could be actual biological life coming from somewhere else, or like interdimensional, because to travel they might fold space and time, which makes them interdimensional travelers. Or some people say they're just demons trying to trick us.
I'm kind of back and forth on it. I don't even know. Cause, like,
yeah.
The thing is, I would need to know like what hell's like, I guess, because it's one of those things where I'm like, why would a demon need a craft? Maybe they would. I just don't know.
My only thing is, again, I read the Pennywise, and so in the book, for him to eat, the people, he has to take a physical form, and he has to abide by the rules of that form. So if they're all projecting into our reality, taking any kind of form, then they would need to kind of breathe oxygen or some kind of, gas to survive.
Right. Oh, okay.
So they wouldn't be able just to fly out in space like Superman. They would need a ship.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense for space. Earth gets a little dicey for me because, I mean, before he's...
Oh, I think you froze again. Frozen again. Oh, there he goes.
Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. I understand that for space, but like before humans, like demons, this was like the demons' playground until God was like, you guys are like really fucking up Earth.
Yeah, that's why people say that he sent the flood and killed the Nephilim.
Yeah. Dude, that's a wild part of the Bible because I don't know, unless you've read the Bible, like, I don't think people understand that God, as a character, sometimes gets very sad and, like, melancholy. It's actually weird. Like, he flooded all of the earth. He got, like, super depressed, and he's just like, I'm not doing anything.
I mean, dude, I'm assuming it would take a toll, because I see people bring that up. If he's like, okay, sorry about that. I have the very basic version of Zoom, so it kicked me off and wouldn't let me start a new one for a couple minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll go ahead and just like send you the video after we're done.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I have it. The OBS? So it's recording my screen.
Oh, okay, cool.
Recording in progress.
Where did we leave off?
We were still talking about like Nephilim, traveling like space and stuff.
Oh, okay. Oh,
and the flood.
Right. So it was right after the flood, right? 1 second. I'm gonna open this real quick.
No problem. But yeah, I hear people kind of bring that up, like, oh, if he's such a loving and caring God, why did he kill so many innocents? And it's like, well, he was just trying to flood the earth and get rid of all the evil.
Yeah, and the thing that I think some people overlook is that the flood actually taught God a lesson. Like, God became way less vengeful after he did that flood.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you read, dude, it's a rough go when you read Old Testament up until that point. Because God just left and right is just like, oh, if you don't appreciate what I've given you, I'm just going to completely fuck your life up. And then that kind of gets less and less after the flood. He doesn't really have too many crazy events.
No, but that makes me think of like King Solomon. When he falls, he's just like, I'm not going to talk to you anymore.
Yeah,
which is like one of the worst punishments people say, for God to just be like, I'm done. I'm not talking to you anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's why, because the way it's presented is the reason why God gave us Jesus is because he was tired of all these people going to hell and becoming closer to Satan in whatever regard, whether it be physical or not.
Mm-hmm.
And he needed some sort of connection that would bring people back to him without him having too much of an intervention in it. So like Jesus is supposed to be like the intervening force between us and God. And so like once that happened, that's when the game really changed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's the New Testament.
Yeah, I had people talking about like the red heifer, how that brings about the end of the world, because to God it's like an insult. He's like, I sent the perfect sacrifice in Jesus, and
yep.
You don't believe, and you're gonna offer this up instead, and it doesn't even compare.
Jesus in John's the Gospel of John, he warns the Pharisees. He's like, if you guys continue down this path, you're going to have a synagogue of Satan. You guys don't get it. Your father is going to be Satan, and this whole thing is going to be for naught. And they were like, you can go fuck yourself. Like, basically, is their reaction to that. And that's, I mean, without going too, crazy against Jews, but like that, it is one of those things where it's just like, ever since that happened, like the way they treat Christians is really shitty in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
The way that they look at Christianity as a whole is kind of strange. Like it's just bizarre. Like in the Talmud, do you know what the Talmud is?
It sounds familiar. I don't know more than other than a religious text, maybe.
Okay, yeah, it's basically like really what the Talmud is. It was like a bunch of rabbis got together to argue about how to get around God's laws, basically, like in a quote unquote natural way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why like Jews like on Saturdays, like they can't like turn on or off lights by themselves. They have to actually ask like other people to do it. It's like this whole thing. But in the Talmud, it's described that Jesus is burning in hell in excrement.
Yeah, because they don't see him as the Messiah.
Yeah, so like they went into there's like this whole story in the Talmud where they're like, not only is he like burning in hell in like human feces, they brought him back as a ghost, and he was I forgot who it was that supposedly took Jesus' soul out of hell for a second, and supposedly Jesus was just like, it's true, I was a liar, I was like I was being blasphemous. It's just the craziest shit in the world to read, because it's like one of those things where it's just like, I don't know, maybe Christian historians would do a similar thing if they had separate books like that outside of like the New and Old Testament, but
like the Book of Enoch.
The Book of Enoch's interesting
Mm-hmm.
because there's just so much contention on whether or not it was even written by someone who could have any sort of say in what's put in the Bible or not. Like, it's really weird. There's a lot of mystery on the creation of that book in particular.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about, since he doesn't actually communicate with God, mostly angels, maybe they could have been like fallen angels or Lucifer himself, kind of like tricking them, leading them on down the different paths.
And that one had a lot of magic stuff in it, didn't it?
Yeah, that's where we get the Enochian magic and the Enochian language.
Right. Yeah. I haven't read it. I've just heard things about it. I've heard there's a lot of kind of like black magic aspects to it. So yeah, I'm kind of curious about it. Is there anything in the Book of Enoch that you've heard that like has any sort of conspiracy ties, even like to aliens or anything like that? I hear like there's a lot of spiritual and alien crossover, and I'm always curious to hear other. Not
anything like super major, other than he goes up to heaven, so that could be him going to like a different realm, different dimension.
That is the weirdest. That was always weird to me, because there's only been 3 people in Earth's history, biblically, who have ever gone into heaven alive, like as a person.
Yeah, like I want to say he got to stay there living, and then came back like 300 years later or whatever.
Yeah, it's just so bizarre that it's like those specific people are chosen for that. Now, now that I'm thinking about it, I think Enoch is mentioned in one line I think it's literally one line in the Old Testament where they're like, "Oh yeah, and he went to heaven."
Yeah, well, I want to say there's two. There's one close to like the time of like Cain and all them, like he was a descendant of Cain, and then you have like Noah's grandfather Enoch, and I think that's the one that goes up into heaven.
Oh, okay, dude. I've been watching this channel called So Be It. It's like it's this. I guess they called him like Christian apologist, but he was a Jew. Well, he's culturally a Jew, but he was religiously a Jew. But he had like a Christian awakening, and what he does is he's in Israel with a microphone and a camera, like talking to Jews about Jesus. It's like a suicide mission in some regards. Like you'll see people walking by who like look like they want to kick his ass, but it's interesting because a lot of the Jews he'll talk to in Israel, they'll be like, well, Jesus can't be real because God can't be a living man. Like it just can't happen. And then what's really interesting is Jesus isn't the first person that God took form of. He actually took form of an old man in the Old Testament. And so that whole idea of their belief that this is actually sacrilege, that God would present himself as a human, is actually not even Jewish. It's actually more Jewish to believe that because it's already happened within your history.
Mm-hmm.
It's really strange to me.
Yeah, kind of going back to like the Dogman and Bigfoot. Some people say that that's a form they take when they come. They kind of like Avatar. They take that form when they come down to our realm and interact with us.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that. It's one of those. It made it easier to become a Christian, become a believer, going through the whole spirit guide stuff, going through like seeing like whatever, maybe the Hat Man or whatever it was, all that stuff, because it was just like either I've gone absolutely insane, which maybe, or there is something more to it, and maybe there was more wisdom to these words than I had ever put weight into. And that really helped me with that, especially when I went back and talked to the spirit guides, and they were just like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah, I think there's more to the world than people give credit to. There's so much strange and interesting things going on.
Yeah, and I feel like oddly, and I don't know if it's just because of positivity, because of being Christian or whatever, like a new outlook on life or what it is. But I feel like ever since I stopped doing that, my life has gotten exponentially better. I feel luckier. I feel like I feel like I'm kind of like living my life for the first time, like in forever. And I do wonder if I was always just bringing something with me. Like if there was always like some sort of traveler with me that I just never knew about, that just would somehow influence my decisions throughout my life, and I just never had any understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when people bring up spiritual warfare, they say that, there's a lot more demons out there controlling people. Not like a puppet, but kind of, but more so like, how do they say it? Just kind of bringing the lives down, just being dampened. It's not mental illness, it's a demon making you feel like that, making sure you don't have any, like positive, what's the word? Chances or choices to make. It's all negative instead of positive. Yeah,
and like it was just one of the things where it felt like I was chained. I was chained, and then like I had a key finally, and I just undid it, and it was just so bizarre how quickly everything kind of like turned on its head. I don't even know if I would have the podcast if I didn't stop doing that shit, because I remember I would be like, should I do this? Should I do that? And then, like, it would almost be like me asking them, and at the same time, me second-guessing myself. So whenever I would put something onto them, it was like I was too scared to actually do something if I just wanted to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So then, once I got rid of that, I was just like, oh, okay, fuck it. I'm just going to go head first into everything,
Yeah.
But, yeah, man. And it's funny because, like, I'll watch, like, these like priests. There's like some of these exorcists and like some of these priests, they're like YouTube personalities now. I don't know if that's specifically like the Catholic Church being like, we need you out here doing these shows or whatever, But they'll talk to like people who were kind of like me and who were kind of like my sister, where they were doing it for money. They were like mediums, you know.
Yeah.
And they would have the same feeling where it was just like they felt like they were getting like this good information from a good source, and they felt like they were helping people with this information. But then, like, the more and more they dived into it, the more they realized there was like this weight that was on their shoulders that was just constantly dragging them down. They didn't know what it was. And then they started to realize, once they started diving more into like Christianity or Catholicism or whatever, they were like, oh, maybe this is actually, I've been toying with something that I shouldn't have been.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been getting accurate information on stuff, but maybe it's because I'm getting it from a source that's closer than heaven, and I shouldn't be listening to it.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever watch Ancient Aliens?
No, I've always seen the memes. I haven't actually watched it.
I thought it was a really good show, just something interesting to watch. But I think they bring that up with like demonic entities, that they'll give you two truths and a lie. That's how they get you. They give you the two truths, and then the third thing would be a lie.
Whoa, damn, dude.
Yeah.
I'm almost enticed to go back just to test that out.
I mean,
yeah.
As somebody who's extremely curious, it is hard not to want to go down that road just to have some kind of experience, you know.
And dude,
you can understand the light better once you go into the dark.
For sure. That's how I feel about it. It's absolutely how I feel about it. And like, it's just so crazy when you're reading the Bible and you're hearing these stories about like the demonic forces and like how they've like affected like just regular humans like throughout the Bible. And you're like, I kind of have a familiarity with this feeling here. Like, there's things that they're describing that I kind of connect to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it's alarming. But it is also one of those things where it's just like, it really sinks you into, like, maybe there's way more to this than we're giving it credit for.
Yeah. I want to say, think about it. They had brought that up when they were talking about, like, different cults and stuff who say they're in contact with other entities and stuff. That's how they get them. To kind of join their side to do something not so good.
Yeah. And like with my sister, it's a totally different thing. She doesn't even use a totem. She like just mentally does it.
Yeah, that's crazy that some people have that. I don't know if it's extra gene or just a stronger connection that they can just do it willingly.
Yeah, it's so weird. And like it's kind of been straining a little bit because like my sister and my mom are like, they're both still kind of pretty into this whole thing. And I haven't, part of me has wanted to have like a sit down, not like a scolding or anything like that, but just like a sit down talk with my sister and be like, do you think it's even possible, that it's even remotely possible that these things that you were taught when you were young were perhaps from a force that was manipulating you?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, that would be kind of a hard conversation to have, but it's one I really want to have, like, especially like after looking into all of this, because it's just like, it would be really unfortunate that like for like the past 30 years, my sister's just been like working for Satan.
Yeah, that would suck.
Yeah.
I want to say, the episode I had brought up earlier, that was one of the new ones, that was kind of what the lady was talking about. She was kind of like indoctrinated into basically like the family, what's it called? What's the group of witches? Coven. It's like a family coven, and so she was kind of like born into that, and the only thing that saved her was a family member got her baptized early on, so when she was ready to leave, she had, the power of God behind her.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing she says that saved her.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I'll tell you what. Ever since I stopped doing all that stuff, I'm kind of homeless when it comes to like the religious aspect of it. It's Christian. But there's things about Catholicism I like. There's things about Protestants I like. Like, it's just kind of all over the place. But I will say, I always keep a St. Benedict medal in my room. I always keep one in my truck. I even have like a rosemary that's a St. Benedict crucifix that I keep on my person, like at work, especially at work, because like the dude I work with, I don't know what the fuck he's carrying with him. But the security that fills inside of me for whatever reason, it's very strong. I haven't seen crazy shit, like, since I've had that. And, like, we've talked about this in DMs, like, you know, I live on that crazy 33rd degree.
Yeah, the 33rd parallel.
Yeah, and so that I've also wondered if that's partly why it's been so strong here, you know, where it's...
Possibly, because it's such... People say it's a ley line, and it's so massive. It doesn't matter which part you're on, as long as it's the 33rd. But it's the same latitude as Jerusalem and stuff. So a lot of people bring the parallel to that. And like Joshua Tree.
I want to even say it's the same exact degree as Mount Olives, where Jesus was crucified.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, it's just it's. I'll go for, because I live. Have you ever played Fallout?
No, but I'm aware of it. My wife's a big fan.
Okay, so yeah, so like, you know, it's like they call it the wastelands. Like, it's like this huge desert landscape. It's like nothing but wildlife, basically. I'm like kind of on the cusp of that. Like, there's like city stuff here and there, but you walk out there and it's anyone's game, and it's very creepy when you have this knowledge that you live on like this supernatural degree, and then also you talk to spirit guides, and then also there may be dogmen, and so like I go for walks all the time at like 2 a.m. and I'm just constantly like, fuck, like, is this gonna be the night where something's gonna pop out of the fucking bushes or?
Oh yeah, I went camping over this weekend with my friend. I went up to the Sierra Estrella because somebody told me from like a Facebook group that has to do with like dogmen. I think it was the North American Dogman Society Association. But yeah, being out there at night, I wanted to walk in. We never did because we ended up crashing. But yeah, just the idea of being out there and something just stands up, you know, growls at you or something. It's scary. I want that experience, but at the same time, I want to make sure I'm prepared physically and mentally.
For sure. I mean, like, I don't... Even if you aren't religious, I would just pocket, like, a St. Benedict medal. Like, maybe even get it. You can even do it yourself. Do a blessing on it. It can't hurt. Throw it in your pocket. You are at least protected.
Yeah. I've heard people on the confessional say the Psalms 23 and then 61 or 91 are good prayers to say to kind of like, you know, protect yourselves against spiritual warfare in your house.
I'm look into this. Yeah, I don't know offhand. But yeah, Psalms is awesome. Yeah, dude, it's just, it's been a weird ride. And like, it's one of those things where I never once in my life really would have thought I would have become religious in any sort of capacity. Even when I was doing the spirit guide stuff, I was always 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I was like, it was one of those things where I would have like the totem or whatever, and I'd be talking, and I'm just like, sure, this could be actual answers I'm getting, or it could just, I'm looking at a swinging
like
kind of chain.
I consider myself more like agnostic, like I said about the different levels to reality. If there's a cap or if it goes infinitely, if there's a being up there, that's God, but I don't really necessarily subscribe to like the Bible.
Sure.
Like 100%. So I would say I'm kind of like that too, like 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yeah.
And like the whole like magic stuff, it's interesting to want to kind of like get into just to see if it's real. What can I do? But it's one of those things you open yourself up.
Do you ever think it was interesting? So like, this may sound racist. I'm not trying to be racist, but like they say that like black people in particular have a talent for alchemy. Like, it's really interesting.
I mean,
you see it all the time in Heesch, in Haiti and stuff like that, and it does take over certain African American cultures.
I would say to some degree that would make a little sense, because I want to say one of the sons of Noah basically kind of like fathers the African people and a couple other ones.
That's right. Yeah, and he was an alchemist at some point, right?
I think so. Or
I think so.
It got passed down from the Watchers. They taught man warfare and like alchemy, and they taught the women, magic and herbs and stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I would love to just find like someone who practices alchemy, like in Africa, just to talk to them. hopefully they aren't absolutely insane, and like just maybe get some answers on it.
Yeah, there was I think it was episode 61 of the confessionals. They had a guy on that said he was the a high wizard of the Satanic Church.
Oh, okay.
I think he would be an awesome dude to just pick his brain and talk to him about stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I get in a whole nother conspiracy of like the Illuminati and Bohemian Negro. He says he's been there to. He wasn't necessarily the guy you made deals with, but he was the one you talked to get to the people you can make the deals with, essentially. So yeah, he was between. I think it was 12 years between like 88, 89 to like mid 90s. So it's like
Did you ever hear the story of how Anton LaVey died?
Actually, Tony had an episode with the pastor that adopted his daughter. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a very crazy story, dude. That should be made into a movie.
Talking about like astral projection. Yeah, that's it. He died. His civil cord got cut, and he wasn't able to make it back into his body.
Craziest fucking story, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man.
Like I said, going down the rabbit hole, I haven't opened it yet, but I got it on eBay. Can you see it?
Oh, yeah.
I want to kind of check it out just to see what he says. Some people say, he was just a poser and stuff, but I think, according to that story, if it's somewhat true, then he was dabbling in some crazy stuff.
And, dude, there was a reason why he was so high up in the military, too. I think he had crazy ties, with people... in government and things like that, who I'm sure were dabbling in that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. There's the whole thing about the Nazis. There was another episode from the confessionals. The guy was saying that the Germans, the Nazis, they believed they were the descendants of the Aryans, who themselves said they were the descendants of the Atlanteans, and that gets a whole another conspiracy thing. With Nephilim and giants and stuff. They
kind of go in that Hellboy 2, I think, a little bit.
Because they were dabbling in the occult. So when we brought them over for, Paperclip, to work at NASA, I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, man, dude. Yeah, just a bunch of, Satanist scientists. They work at NASA. Yeah.
Trying to get to, other space.
It kind of makes me wonder, the legitimacy of that Doom game.
Which one?
Because
there've been so many of them.
Oh, I just mean in general, the idea of there's maybe there is this connection between other planets and demons, or other just space in general and demonic forces. Maybe that's why they were we need to get a few Satanist scientists in here.
There was, again, I keep bringing it up, but I went down the rabbit hole like crazy when I started listening to him, Tony Mokel. But there was one talking about how Earth is a lot older than people think, and that essentially after he rebelled and came to Earth, Lucifer had his kingdom, which was a planet where the belt is behind Mars.
Yep.
That during the fighting that got destroyed, and he kind of went to hell, came to Earth. So yeah, there's depending on the rabbit hole, what you believe, it's all kind of connected.
It's so funny, dude, because, God's all right, Satan, you can have this planet. And then he fucks that up, and he's just just go on Earth. And then he fucks that up. He's just dude,
I can't help you.
Yeah, go to hell. I don't know what to say. Yeah. Oh, man. But, I'm trying to think, what is the true purpose? What would be what is the true reasoning as to why Satan would have any sort of care about us on Earth? I guess he was mad that we even had Earth. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's why.
I think in all three religions, it's pride. He didn't want to bow down to us because he thought we were so inferior to him.
Right.
And so I think it's just all just kind of an F you to God.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, and that's another thing that, is crazy to me, because, they were talking about how they were gonna, sacrifice the heifer, I think it was, right across from Mount Olives or something crazy, some crazy shit like that, I think. And I'm one of the biggest things that they hit home in the Bible is that Satan's like favorite thing is mocking gods, like in any sort of shape or form. That's why like like the demonic cross is the cross upside down, or like that's why there's like even the idea of the Antichrist, like all these things. It's all supposed to be like in this mockery of God. And so like when they're like, oh well, we're gonna go ahead and sacrifice the heifer, like basically on Mount Olives, it's like you guys are doing the Satan thing. It's insane. But that was supposed to happen during Passover, I think, and then it just didn't happen.
Well, the last I heard, they were still waiting to see if any blemishes would happen on the red heifer that they had, because they like imported from like Texas, trying to bring about the apocalypse, just so we can end it all and go live in heaven and be at peace.
Right.
But they have to wait to make sure there's no blemishes. I don't know if anything ever came about that.
Talk about an insane job, dude. Because like for I think months or something like that, there was just these people whose job was to count each individual hair.
Yeah, like it has to all be red. There's not a single hair strand can be different. They
have to do it multiple times, over and over again, to make sure that the count is exact. And it's like, whoa, dude, that's too much.
Yeah, like you really want the apocalypse to happen.
Yeah, and it's like, of course, my idea of it is just like, in a way, it has to happen, just because it's prophesized or whatever. And what's really crazy, dude, I think it's, if you want, you can look it up, but it's Matthew 24. If you want to read through something nuts, Jesus basically, okay, so the disciples are like, so how are we going to know, like, what are the signs that you're going to be coming back? And he was just like, and he lays it all out. And dude, like, there's at least 3 or 4 of those things that have happened.
Yeah, like, people bring up the creation of Israel as one of those signs, and there's so much to unpack with that.
The world's armies being at war, like there's a lot. There was a lot. Like there was the eclipse. They went over that. They went over how there would be a big rock falling from the sky, and that same exact week there was a huge meteor. There was just a lot of weird things that just kind of matched up with Matthew 24. We just haven't gotten to the latter end of it.
Excuse me. Yeah, I want to say, I forget where it was. It might have been the confessionals again. But yeah, a lot of people think we're kind of in that end times, just kind of waiting.
I kind of feel that, and I don't know if I just feel that because of the whole heifer situation, probably. But, I mean, there's also other signs. It's just like, culturally, I think we're kind of lost. I mean, of course, that's subjective. But there's just so many, like, it seems like everyone is in pain. Like, I don't even mean, like, personally, like you or I or something. I just mean, like, the world, the countries. It seems like everyone is going through a very strifeful time right now. And I feel like that would be an indicator, possibly, that we might be, knocking on the door of the end of times.
Yeah, especially if people are trying to make it happen, like with the red heifer. Yeah, like I want to see the last one. There was a guy talking about conspiracies and like the signs of the end time, and the Jehovah's Witnesses said that the end of days or the end of life was going to happen on a certain date, and that was a date that a guy was born. I forget his name, and he said he was the Antichrist or like one of them. There's supposed to be like many, and it's crazy.
Yeah, dude, that's my brother has a theory that Tom Cruise is one of the pretenders.
Well, actually, in that same episode, they bring up Hubbard being kind of associated with demonic entities and whatnot.
With who?
L. Ron Hubbard, the guy that created Scientology.
Yeah.
That like him and somebody else tried to recreate in the same location that Crowley did his ritual, and then they actually made it wider and never actually closed it or something.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So there are all kinds of theories of like portals to hell, like CERN and all that.
I was literally just going to bring up CERN. Yeah.
Because they brought up the Nazis that Hitler did a speech at the was it Temple of Jupiter or something, Zeus, and its original position was actually in the center where the sun is now, and then they ended up moving it into like Berlin, and that's a whole nother chaos thing. Things just devolved after that.
Yeah. So, is this a conspiracy, or is this just history? Because I know that Hitler, he like definitely was trying to look for like the spear of
Destiny.
Yeah, the spear that stabbed Jesus.
Yeah.
And but I heard there were conspiracies that not only did he have people go look for it, he went on that mission himself with a bunch of like soldiers, and like they went on like this huge journey to like go find the spear of destiny, which that's a crazy thing to think about. Like you have like Hitler himself like taking it upon himself to like go find that.
I don't know. I know there's a lot of medium about Spear of Destiny, like you brought up Hellboy or like Constantine, which ironically the dude finds it wrapped in a Nazi flag at the beginning in Constantine.
Oh, interesting. It's insinuating they found it.
Yeah, and hid it somewhere in Mexico. But as factually, I don't know if he ever found it or if it holds any, magic properties.
I mean, I guess if you're asking me of all people, I would say it'd have to. Because like if it's
if it touched Jesus, you would think it would have some lingering effects.
It was soaked in his blood, like so and like when they talk about like the actual crucifixion of Jesus, the guard that stabbed him with it, Jesus' blood sprayed out like water, basically. Like it was like insane, and it sprayed. He had like a really fucked up eye. And it sprayed all over his face, and he like could see again. And then he like dropped to his knees. He's like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, that would be a huge wake-up call. Did you ever watch the movie Demon Knight? It was Tales from the Crypt.
I've heard of it. I never saw that one.
Oh, I like it. It's kind of cheesy '90s, but I really like it. But they have that point too, when they have like the key, one of the 7 keys of darkness, and it's filled with I think he said it's only a tiny bit remains that is actually Jesus' blood. But yeah, you can use that to like, seal off doorways and, demons can't really touch it. So I wouldn't be surprised if it holds some kind of magic property, the spear or his blood itself.
It's the craziest thing, because like, you'll hear from people who say that even invoking his name has power. Oh
yeah, I meant to bring that up. That in encounters with like dogmen and stuff, people have invoked the name of Jesus and they've ran away, but also it's done nothing to them. They just kind of laugh. So I guess it just depends.
Weird. So
on your faith or I guess how strong the entity is.
Is it one of those things where like they'll laugh but they'll still run away?
I don't know off the top of my head if they ever said it still ran away, but they were able to tell the tale, so it didn't get them in that kind of a sense.
Interesting. Yeah, see, dude, like all that stuff is crazy to me. And like if you ever like listened to the audio of Emily Rose, or is that the movie? It's the German chick who that's based on. It's like the exorcism of this German woman.
Yeah, Exorcism of Emily Rose. I watched the movie. I never really dove into the actual.
Okay, so was her actual name Emily Rose?
I don't know if that was actually her name.
Okay.
But it's based on a true story allegedly.
If you want like to watch something that's creepy, it's kind of a treat to watch it just because it's so weird. They documented like some of the exorcism of them doing that to her. And it's really interesting because they'll be like, "Why do you fear the rosary? Like, well, what is it about the rosary that you hate?" And she's just like, "It burns, it hurts, it burns." And she was just like, "If only they knew." And he was like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "That it holds like a power." And she's like, "Yes." It's like, well, it's just so fucking crazy because she was like a 16-year-old girl who, I guess, didn't really show too many crazy, from what I remember, didn't show like too many crazy like signs of mental illness really or anything like that. But it was like one day something happened where, well, I think she went to Catholic school maybe, but something turned on a dime and like she stopped eating, she stopped like taking care of herself, she started like lashing out at people violently, And then after that, for a little bit, it just unraveled into now she's just always the demon for, however long she's going to be. And then, so they tried to feed her. It was like her parents tried to feed her, the priest tried to feed her, and at a certain point, it was hopeless, so they just stopped altogether. And so I think the parents both got arrested and put in jail for malnourishment or abandonment or something of their child. She was 16 at the time. And I think the priest also got some time for that.
Yeah, I want to say they served some time because, she still ended up, passing away.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's one of those things, I don't know where to land on that. Because, it's like, if it was real, what are you going to do? You can't really force feed a demon, maybe. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. It was your hand, and that's why she's kind of dead.
Yeah, and I would say they still kind of play the role to some extent. But I have heard that people bring up demonic possessions that your soul or spirit actively fights. That's where you get a lot of like the exorcist, like the throwing up, all that physical change. But then there are people who just let them in willingly, and it's just like a perfect merge. You would never know.
From what I understand, it's actually most cases that. I think it's actually supposed to be really hard to be possessed unless you're like...
You actively invite them in.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious what Emily Rose, or whatever her name is, was really doing. Because, unless she brought it in, I don't know how else that would have gone. And, you couldn't ask her because she was, she was, gone. Man.
What do you think of the Harry Potter series? Because that makes me think, going back to the Zachary King episode, that was the guy's name, I think. That was the High Wizard. He says there was a story he's heard about a priest during an exorcism, and one of the demons said that it was one of the 6 that possessed J.K. Rowling's, and that's how she ended up writing the book series. It wasn't from her, it was the demons.
Whoa, dude. I love Harry Potter. I'll always love Harry Potter. I don't think it's this evil thing or anything. But that would be crazy. I assume J.K. Rowling hasn't mentioned anything about this.
Probably not. Like I said, it was just a story he heard from an exorcist thing. That's what the demon said. So, I don't know.
So I guess I didn't even think about it being a demon was just relaying that information.
Yeah, but like I said, they lie all the time, so who knows? But again, going back to books being portals, that could be it. Any kind of demonic influence could create a portal.
I feel like if a demon is we're gonna craft these Harry Potter books, I feel like there would be this underlining theme that is wrong, maybe, or there'd be maybe these. I guess maybe they're pointing to magic.
Yeah, I want to say he brought that up. That and D&D, they actually looked into real spells and stuff for the book. So there is that essence that it is real magic, whether you believe it or not. And I think he said to be able to do magic, it's intent, repetition, and then demonic presence. That's how you can do magic.
I'm creating a crazy conspiracy right now. So what if, let's just say all that's true, and you have the entire world almost saying all these spells out loud with whatever intent.
Go for it, and I'll finish.
So what if all of that, because think back to, the first Harry Potter book came out in 96. So there's all this time, it's almost 30 years. What if all these kids, all these adults saying these spells and stuff is partly why the United States, why the world is kind of in this weird mental health dystopia, where it's maybe the spark was them bringing these entities into their lives without them knowing it, and more of these people who did that went crazy, and that's maybe what mental illness is even.
Yeah. To some degree, I would think demonic possession would seem like schizophrenia, multiple personalities. There's more than one.
Yeah.
But no, have you heard of the Topa? I think it's how you pronounce it. The Topa.
It sounds familiar. I don't know what it is, though.
I know there was an episode of Supernatural, but it's basically a being that is brought into existence by a bunch of people believing it exists. So that's crazy too. Huh? Yeah. So I wonder if how much of like Dogman, Bigfoot can be associated with that. The more people think about it, believe in it.
How crazy would that be if that's how reality worked? Where it's like, you know, or what if like, how crazy would it be if like Jesus wasn't even a thing unless it were the people who were believing it?
Yeah. I thought I heard some of that in terms of like reality creating abilities. Humans were like second to God.
Yeah. Well,
so,
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
That would make sense. Yeah. Because I mean, if we're created in His image.
To some degree,
yeah.
We have a little bit of that. But there are people that think, we can influence the reality based by just thinking about it, like manifestation and stuff.
I think there is something to that. Because, like, there's just too many instances, whether it's, I mean, this is intervention kind of, but, like, whether it be I pray for something or whether it be I'm just like, I really want this thing to happen or I really want this. It's like as soon as I have this desire, something will lead me to it. And I don't know what that could be necessarily.
I kind of believe that to some extent, but also I think if you're thinking about it and actively trying to get to that point, you're going to see the doors and stuff, the pathways.
Yeah. I can see that too. Yeah. Damn, dude. I'm trying to think what other crazy shit. What has Alex Jones been going on about? Has he been bringing up any crazy... Oh, is he done now?
I don't know. I heard they were trying to get him to sell off everything because of that one lawsuit, which is crazy to me, I think.
Dude, when the lawsuit first happened, I was like, it sucks. I sort of get it. But then, like, once they were just, like, acting on the money, I was like, okay, you guys are just making a martyr. This is absolutely crazy.
I don't know if I go martyr per se, but they're making an example. I know... Going back to that one interview with the high priest, or the high wizard, I mean, he was saying since he was at Bohemian Grove that he, not really a plant, but they kind of allowed him to see certain things, and I feel like they were just waiting for an opportunity to kind of yank the rug out from under him and be like, see, everything else he's done is false because of this one thing he was wrong about.
Dude. Okay, I have a Bohemian Grove story. Maybe you've heard it. It has to do with the Satanic Church. So, Bill Clinton, he's like about to get sworn in, I think, and he's at Bohemian Grove. I think he's talking to one of the heads, maybe this guy, one of the heads of the Church of Satan. And
does it have to do with cake?
I don't remember.
Because there was a story he told. Well, go for it, and then I'll say mine.
So Hillary is like at Bohemian Grove.
Yeah, I think that's the story.
Yeah. So and maybe you can fill in holes. It's been a while, but like, so Hillary's at Bohemian Grove for whatever reason, and she's like walking. Clinton's like in some very serious meeting with the head of the Church of Satan, and Hillary comes over and like the guards swarm her, grab her, and he looks up and he goes like, "Take care of her." And then someone, and they were about to take her away, and like it sounded like kill her. And then like someone in the group was just like, "Hey, Bill, do you love her?" And he was just like, "Well, yeah, it's my wife." I don't know if he would say that today, but
yeah.
But and he was just like, "Don't worry about it, guys."
Yeah.
So clearly there was something, you know.
Yeah, because the story he told of being that he was walking around, you know, in the makeup, he says that kind of like the uniform of the high priest is like a top hat and like skull paint and stuff.
Okay.
What was it? Did you ever watch Pink's Just a Pill music video?
Oh, no.
Oh, watch it, because there's a dude essentially in the same getup with some kind of stick, like doing a magic spell on her in the video. It's crazy. But yeah, he was, huh?
That's Pink, right?
Yeah, Pink.
Okay, and the song again? Sorry.
Just a Pill, I think it is.
Just a Pill. Okay.
A pill, Pill. I have a speech problem.
Pill.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay, yeah.
But yeah, he was talking about how he was there doing his business. There was cake, and he really wanted to get some, but he was on duty. And then by the time he was able to get some, it was all gone, other than Bill Clinton had this big piece. So he was like, hey. And then the whole thing about high wizards is that if they give you a golden coin, you get a free wish from any of the high wizards.
Whoa.
So he was like, hey, let me have some of that cake. And he was like, go for it. You can have half. And so he gives them the coin, and then, yeah, she runs up. Women not supposed to be there, so it was a whole big security thing. And then, like, I think they ask if you love her or not. He's like, yeah. And the guards came back, and they're like, what do you mean by take care of her? And he was
That's
like,
right. That's right.
He was like, just put her in the car, let her leave. And he was like, damn, a lot of people wanted her dead, wanted to knock her off. And he says he heard so many years later, Bill Clinton cashed that in to have sex with some woman. Like that's what he used his wish for.
Dude. Especially that guy, because, like, he's like fucking everyone.
Yeah.
It's like, why waste it?
Yeah, why waste it? You became the president. You would think you could get, pussy all over the place.
It would be so funny. He was just like, man, if I could just get one intern. And then just
he never mentioned who it was, but there's a whole conspiracy about her being a plant just to get dirt on him. So I don't know. But yeah, that's a crazy story.
That is a really crazy story. Yeah, when I heard that, I thought it was nuts. But one of the funniest things is, like, so right after the Monica Lewinsky blowjob thing, Clinton is, like, kind of on, like, the ass end of, like, his presidency.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, like, dying to not let this be his legacy. And so he's, like, trying his best to make peace in the Middle East happen, just so, like, he can be the guy and they can just forget all about this whole thing. And so, dude, every single time it would be like he would have, like, these talks with, like, Ehud Barak, who was, like, the prime minister of Israel at the time, and the deal would never change for Palestine. It would be like, we're going to offer them 8% of the West Bank, 1% of this little strip of Jerusalem or whatever. And but every single time, because Ehud Barak would not budge. But Bill Clinton is such a good salesman, he calls Arafat on the phone, and he's just like, oh, Arafat, we got this great deal. You're going to love it. There's no way you guys are going to say no to this. This is going to finally bring peace between you guys. It's a one-state thing. And Arafat loves Clinton for whatever reason. I guess he's just a charming dude. And Arafat was just like, cool, all right, I'll go down to Geneva. He presents that deal, which is insane, and Arafat was like, obviously, we're not taking this. And this happened 4 times with the same exact deal. And every single time, Bill Clinton calls up Arafat, and he's just like, bro, no, but you're going to love this one. It's going to be the thing that brings peace to the Middle East. And it's literally the same exact deal. He just threw it in front of him. But Arafat trusted him every single time.
Yeah, you would think you would catch on, but I guess it's like, okay, let me hear you out.
It had to be one of those things, too, where he's just like, yeah, this is going to be like before. He's like, no, this is different. And Bill Clinton just, like, he's silver-tongued, and he can figure out how to, manipulate him into going down to Geneva. Ah, man, it's just so crazy. But there's a really good book called The Truth About Camp David that was written by a security guard from Geneva who had all these different conversations with everyone there, and he documented all the conversations. And most of the book is just like Madeleine Albright, Bill Clinton, Arafat, Ehud Barak, and all these like heavy hitters in the Camp David Accords. And it's crazy to me. The reason why I think a lot of what's in that book is true versus what the media would tell everyone about how those deals went out, because the media was like, Israel offered Arafat 94% of the West Bank, and he just spit in their face. Like, that's the way they presented it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if the information that was taken, like direct quotes from Clinton, direct quotes from Madeleine Albright, all these people, if any of that was false, he would have been sued immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that way anyway, because like there's just so much like damning shit in those quotes that I'm like, I don't know how else you could have gotten away with it unless it was true.
Yeah, you would think anybody that says anything false would be sued to oblivion. Like Alex Jones.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you believe in the conspiracies about presidents being picked and whatnot?
I think it's almost loaded, like, I think there are times where there's a hand guiding, like, in the direction of a candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if it was fully 100% chosen, we may not have gotten Trump the first time. I think they tried their it's hard for me to even say, dude, because, like, they say no, bad publicity is still good publicity.
Yeah.
So part of me is like, what if they wanted Trump in there, but they did it in almost like a reverse psychology sort of fashion, where they were just like, everyone's going to bombard this guy about every single little thing he does to the point it's going to annoy large portions of the United States, to the point they're going to be huge fans of him. That's kind of my own little maybe conspiracy on that. But I think maybe, there is something to that. Because, I mean, the DNC in particular, I mean, proven they've fucked with machines, like, in some states.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, clearly there's a hand in that sort of way. I don't know if it's one of those things, though, where they're actually going in and, after the fact, changing the number to be like, oh, okay, now it's him. I think it's as it's going. They just go, okay, this one's not Biden, it's Trump, or this one's not Trump, it's Biden, or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, like, I'm not saying, like, it's a top-down kind of situation. It could be, independent people, but going back to that one interview with the High Wizard, he was saying that he actually ran into a young Barack Obama, and somebody told him he's going to be president one day. And what he was explaining was with Jimmy Carter that he says the Illuminati, but basically, like, the system didn't believe he was going to actually be nominated or win, so they didn't even try to stop him. And then, he won, and then they brought in Reagan and pull out all the stops. And I'm very much somebody that believes history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And I think that's what happened with Trump. They just absolutely did not believe he was going to win, so they didn't really try, and then he wins, and they go into panic mode. And to kind of combine it, I like to think there is some truth with, Operation Looking Glass, and the whole conspiracy of the Great Awakening. I think they tried so hard to get him out and somebody else in, it woke a lot of people up to all the shady deals and stuff.
Do you think, this is really getting conspiracy-minded, do you think that there's any connection to the COVID leaking when it did in regard to that whole thing? Because they knew that they would have to have people do voting by mail. And they knew that a lot of that's going to be Democrats during harvesting for votes.
I don't know if that was the plan, but I definitely think they took the opportunity to use that to their advantage. Yeah, dude. 2020, I don't think it worked in the way that they were really hoping. Like, I think it was supposed to be, the way it was supposed to play out, I think, was that they were supposed to bring out this huge fear campaign where people are going to be forced only to trust the government for whatever they need. And I think that their idea was, well, we can just kind of keep this ball rolling. And then once they realized that more and more information about COVID was getting released that they didn't want released, that more and more people were waking up to the idea that a lot of it was kind of bullshit. I think Fauci came out and just said he made something like that, the mask and the social distancing up. So that makes me think it wasn't 100% planned. It just means of opportunity.
Yeah. You know what? I had someone on my podcast recently. He doesn't have his real name out there. He goes by Snakeskin Jacket. He's like he's a vet, and he like dabbles in politics stuff. And his view of the way America runs is like military-industrial complex, but also just kind of the way America runs is like a dog chasing cars. It's less like, we have this big plan where it's like we're going to hit Iraq first, then we're going to hit Afghanistan, then we're going to hit... His idea is it's less orchestrated. It's like, well, we're here. Oh, this shiny thing is getting our eye. Now we're here. And now we're... So I don't know. I think it might be an in-between in regard to that.
I don't know if that got brought up in the same episode with the High Wizard, but I want to say I heard something similar.
One second, sir.
No problem.
Sorry. Okay, sorry.
That that the system, the Illuminati, whatever you want to kind of call it, it does have a grand master plan, but the day-to-day, they just kind of leave it up to whoever's in charge, whoever wants to do whatever personal thing they want to do, as long as it fits within the grand plan.
Yeah, because so like I'm going back to Israel a little bit. So like when 9/11 happened, right? And so a little backstory. Throughout all of the 20th century, there was like 3 instances where Israel was at war with Egypt. It was like there were like these huge wars. And every single time Israel was at war with Egypt, Israel would come to us, Assad really, would come to us and be like, "Oh my God, we need your help. You don't understand. Egypt has these weapons that can like melt your skeletons. Like it's like the crazy. That's hyperbole, but they're like it's like these crazy weapons that you would never understand. You need to send as many resources as you can to Israel so we can take them out." And when we would hear this, every single time we'd be like, "This is a political move. They just want us to get into the war. None of our intelligence suggests Egypt has anything crazy like that. So we're just going to ignore this." And they would. Israel would get by and it'd be fine. But come 9/11, Mossad sends the CIA a list of 7 countries. There's Iraq, there's Afghanistan, there's Syria, there's Iran. It's like all of these countries outside of Iran that we've hit, that we've occupied. And basically what they said was, we don't care when you start, but these are the countries that we would be okay with you basically attacking for 9/11. And it would really help us out if you did that. And so they Karl Rove and black dude, I forgot his name now. Anyway, they give him this list from Mossad and Bush, and they go, "All right, so choose any one of these countries." And he's just like, "Iran, we got to get Iran. Like, Iran's number one." There's like, we can't do Iran first. That would be like a suicide mission. Unless we take out all these like surrounding territories, it would be a bloodbath. And so they start with Iraq. And so Mossad, after we tell Mossad we're going to start with Iraq, Mossad then turns around and feeds the CIA information that there's weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. CIA takes that and goes, "Oh my God, there's weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. This is nothing like what you guys did in the 20th century with Egypt." And we went and started a war with Iraq. Then we found out there weren't weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, like I see a lot of people that want to connect Israel to a lot of things, and I don't know how much it's true or isn't, but I see it as, I think that's the perfect ally to have, because everybody keeps picking fights with them to kind of keep the ball rolling and the industrial complex just keep moving on.
Yeah, you're right, 100% right. Yeah, because all those surrounding territories hate Israel.
Yeah, it just gives us a reason to get into more wars.
And now, I have a bit of a conspiracy about all that too.
Me too, but you go first.
Sure. So I think that there was this deal where it was like, okay, we'll take out Iraq, Afghanistan, all these surrounding countries, so we'll get our resources, whatever we need, and you guys, when you're ready, have a straight line to Palestine. There's nothing that can interrupt it. We have these areas in control. You can have free reign, do whatever you want. And then I think maybe it just happened to be time to start it up.
Well, my conspiracy is going back to like Nephilim and stuff, because there was a passage, I think from WikiLeaks, of Hillary's email saying that they had the body of the Nephilim, and they found Gilgamesh's tomb.
Whoa!
And what's crazy is, I think right before we kind of invaded Iraq, archaeologists came out and said we found this temple matching the descriptions of the ones in, was it the story of Gilgamesh? I forget the title. Other than that, I think it's just the Epic of Gilgamesh or something. And so that's partly why we went in, because there's the stories of like the U.S. ransacking museums and sites and stuff. I think there's something we wanted. That's why we were like, fine, let's go. We can use that as an excuse to get in. The the weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah. Whoa, that would be interesting.
Yeah. Because I've heard that going, heavily into conspiracies about alchemy and the Nephilim, that they want to create homunculus type bodies for the spirits of the Nephilim that are roaming around, so they can have bodies, but also so they can prolong, human life and stuff too, so they can live longer.
Have you heard anything about there being a possible connection and there being more cryptid activity today and the CERN portals and all that?
I think they could be something because, again, Tony Mokel brings up that there's, the Black Ridge or something like that in Tennessee, when they have a particle accelerator, and there's a lot of dogman sightings around there. I don't know if they're coming through portals or if they're protecting it. But I think there's a passage in the Bible that says that the Nephilim will be on Earth before the flood and after. So they have to come back to somehow. For that to be a true statement, they have to come back.
Well, you know what, though? A lot of Nephilim would hide in, really deep, cavernous caves. I mean, it's entirely possible they survived the flood.
Yeah, and if they're all... if angels are interdimensional beings, their offspring, maybe, the first couple generations maybe had their abilities and they could just, hopped out of this plane or, time travel to a different time after.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And, there is a lot that kind of supports the whole dimensional shifting thing. Because, when you look at those aircrafts that they would talk about, I forgot what his name was, but he's an Air Force guy or a Navy guy. He was on JRE a lot, or a couple times. But he would talk about how there was no propulsion. There was no propulsion to the craft.
Mm-hmm.
So what the way it was described was, it was almost like it would get slingshotted, from one area to the other, but it would do it at such a speed that it almost couldn't be physical travel. It would have to be something else.
That kind of sounds like Bob Lazar in a way. That's what he says. That they essentially create some kind of gravitational depression, and they essentially get sucked to that location. I think he says if you pull a bowling ball on the bed and then stand on it, the ball will come to you because of that impression.
Right.
So it's something like that.
It kind of reminds me of Nightcrawler from X-Men, where it's maybe it wouldn't have to be this way for the crafts, but where he sees a place, and if he can see the place, he can get to that place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you would have to have some kind of knowledge of all galaxy or universe to be able to, make that depression to get sucked to where you want to go.
What's your thoughts on aliens being future human time travelers?
I mean, I like to think anything is possible. I think that could be an explanation of certain things people see.
That's interesting.
Yeah, people bring up the Draco, the reptilians. Some of them come from Earth. They could be dinosaurs that went into caves and continue to live and evolve. But there's races out into space. There's so many different conspiracies to go down about the warring on Mars, that the kids would get kidnapped, go fight on Mars for 20 years against the reptilians, get essentially sent back in time to the night they get kidnapped, and age regressed, and a lot of the memories get wiped. It's crazy.
Oh man, that's got to be the case for a lot of schizophrenia patients. Say it's real.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be people being misdiagnosed as having schizophrenia, but they just
some of them the memories come back over time, but some of them they get this feeling, and then so they do hypnosis. So a lot of people discredit that because it's so you can get so influenced in that kind of a state. But also I was thinking my conspiracy about the jinn, because I was thinking if God and everything is real, angels, demons, the Nephilim, how come you don't really see a lot of that nowadays. It's only in the Bible around, the Middle East. And I got them thinking, if they're all the spirits of these things when they died, could that play into like the jinn? Because the jinn is, adjacent to angels and demons, created from smokeless fire. I wonder if there's a connection between that.
I kind of have a theory, and part of me hopes it's true, where, okay, so you have like the Holy Bible, like the Old and New Testament. It's very Middle East centric. But then you have, like, during the same time, sometimes afterwards, before, in different regions of the world, they're also having like their own books, their own teachings, their own stories, their own historical stories that kind of tie into their spirituality. And the cool theory I have, and I think Muslims almost believe this, is that each region is being presented a spiritual road by God. And this just happened to be like the Middle East region, or Middle East path. This happened to be Asia's path, or this happened to be whoever. And I like that idea. I think Muslims have this idea of every country. What was it? It's like every country having their own like a spiritual connection to God, but I forgot what the specifics are of it. But anyway, I like that idea of we're almost just having like pieces of puzzles.
Well, yeah, going back to Noah, I think his kids eventually kind of spread out, and all the progenitors of that race, like Asians, Africans. So I think there is a connection there, but also that everybody has a flood myth. It's crazy. Are they telling the same story from different perspectives, or has it happened multiple times, or are they just floods, general floods?
That blows my mind. Another thing that blows my mind, and I didn't know this until I kind of started getting into Christianity stuff, but really, it's almost every religion outside of Judaism is like, you can take our path to heaven, or you can believe in Jesus. It's so weird. There's tons of religions that are just like, we think this is the path, but we also accept this could be a path.
Yeah,
which
totally.
Is bonkers to me.
Yeah, I've heard that there were good giants and good Nephilim, so that could be it too. But like, I know how to get to heaven. You can follow me, or you can follow Jesus, the true path.
Yeah, that really was crazy to me. That was just like, even like religions that necessarily don't like have like a real Christian framework. Say even like Muslim, they're like, well, Jesus is a prophet, like 100%. He's no different than Moses in that regard. He's no different than any of our prophets. It's just it's so interesting to me. And then like, it's bizarre to me though that and maybe it's just because it's so personal, but it's bizarre to me is that you have these religions who are like, we're open to Jesus, and then Judaism is just kind of like, we don't care. Like, don't even play with the idea of having that as a thought for salvation.
Well, I want to say that they do have the concept of the Messiah coming down, but they view it as the first time, whereas Christians, it's the second time he comes.
Right. Yeah, no, and like, but even religions who don't consider Jesus the Savior, which, is every other religion outside of Christianity, even they are like, but still, Jesus is a path. It's just not that he may not necessarily be like the Savior that Christians think, but he is, for whatever reason, a path to heaven for like tons of religions.
Yeah, I want to say there was on the History Channel, there was one deep diving into like different myths, and they were saying there's some text that says the 3 days he had died, he actually went to Hades, fought Hades, and then that's what became hell. He
started pulling specific innocent people out.
Yeah, because in their religion, everybody basically just goes to Hades, unless you were pure enough to go to like the fields.
Dude, Passion of the Christ 2 is coming out. It's like, I think it's called It might be called Resurrection. But that entire movie is supposed to be him going to Hades.
Mm-hmm. And people bring up like the Tartarus, that the fallen angels got locked in the Tartarus, the deepest point in hell. That's why some people think the Nephilim became demons, because if the fallen angels were already locked in hell, they really couldn't influence us as much.
Well, Nephilim, correct me if I'm wrong, Nephilim are supposed to be the offspring of angels and demons, right? Or is that angels and...
In some media, there is, like, there's a game I played a few years ago called Darksiders, and that was a point. It was kind of like a hybrid. I want to say, did you ever watch that show Preacher?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Oh, yeah, I think they say that there's the being that possesses the preacher that gives them that power of the voice was angels and demons. But I think in the Bible, it's angels and man. Or women, I should say. They came down and took the, daughters of man as wives.
That's right, yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if there's also an angel and Nephilim combined somewhere out there too, or the ones that became demons. Because I think he took like 1/3 of the angels with him, which would be like 200 angels. So they could still be some on Earth. Some got locked into Tartarus.
Dude, yeah, like the idea is supposed to be like when Jesus comes down, you're definitely going to know it, because not only are there going to be like trumpets sounding, you're going to see him coming down on a cloud with like an entire choir of angels. So it's like, it's not going to be hard to miss.
Mm-hmm. Plus, don't they say they have to destroy the Temple Mount to rebuild it? You can't really miss that either.
Yep. So the idea is supposed to be that when they start building the third temple, the Antichrist is supposed to be under, I forgot what he's supposed to be under. It's some sort of like structure watching them building it. And it's supposed to be like the beginning of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Man. I'm trying to think of other crazy fucking conspiracies.
Oh, there's tons. But yeah, I don't know off the top of my head to bring up, but yeah, like there's so many. Like I heard there's one channel I like called the Wi-Fiers. He goes into a lot of different things. Like there's one that talks about the dude it wasn't quite Area 51, but it was kind of out that way. And he talked to like the tall whites, and they were saying that basically Boeing, the company, creates like the Tic Tac ones that they use here on Earth, but then they have the motherships out in space.
Whoa. Wait a minute. So you're saying that the idea is that Boeing has crafts that they've created for aliens for Earth?
According to that one conspiracy theory, yeah, based on the guy saying I talked to these people, and that's what they said.
Whoa.
They're like bus-size, tic-tac shape, all white, that they use to get around on Earth.
I've definitely seen those. I just never in my wildest dreams would have thought that it was like this thing where we're designing it. Granted, I know it's a conspiracy, but like that we're designing them and then like giving them to the aliens so they can fly here. Yeah,
like some people say that the aliens don't really care about us. It's just them kind of flying around and being like, hey, those hellless monkeys are decently good at building spaceships. So they stop in and we make stuff, we get stuff. And I think that ties into the conspiracy of the national parks, because there's that story of Eisenhower making a deal with them that we get technology and they get to kidnap people from national parks.
Seems like there's a lot of those kinds of deals in government.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
So I'm not going to say the name of the company I work for, but I just found out today that they're pretty tied with government stuff. But I just found out today there's cartel prostitutes on the site that get sent because of the construction workers, I guess. But they're like clearly trafficked.
Yeah.
So I gotta look more into that. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of that kind of shit going on.
Mm-hmm. And then bring up the reptilians. There was another video he talked about like the the moon base. That's why we never went back. And they have that big satellite dish that essentially funnels souls back into Earth, like reincarnation, and they kind of feed off of like the misery and stuff. That's why everything's kind of hell on Earth. The more miserable we are, the more essence they can collect and consume.
Is that kind of what Scientology believes?
I wouldn't be surprised if there's something similar.
Because I want to say that the idea, I think the idea in Scientology is that they would take these, Xenu, who's like the evil, he's basically Satan of Scientology. He kidnapped these souls, threw them in, like, they're frozen, I guess. He threw them in a volcano and then, like, brainwashed them into thinking Jesus was real and then put them on Earth.
That sounds similar to what I've heard, yeah. Something about an alien coming down, throwing something or, like, jizzing into, like, the volcano, creating life on Earth.
Yeah. So crazy. Yeah, so I guess, like, that's Xenu's way of, like, distracting from the truth of Scientology or something. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think if there's any, like, Vietnam-era conspiracies that are interesting. Really what's spawning that is me thinking about the Jacob Ladder movie.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see that? Yeah.
I haven't, but I've heard people talking about it.
Okay.
Just the basic concept is that the whole movie is like a dying dream or whatever.
Yeah, and he was like he was like fresh out of Vietnam, and like he thought maybe he was going crazy, but thought he was also seeing demons and stuff. And I forgot like how it ends. I think it might have been what you were saying, like it was a dying dream. But yeah, I don't know. I am curious though about some of those chemicals they used on like the soldiers over there. Like my dad, he got diabetes. I always thought all my life it was because of his diet, and maybe partly it was. But apparently Agent Orange has strong connections to causing diabetes in people.
No, that reminds me of Stranger Things. Did you ever watch that show?
I watched the first 2 seasons.
Oh, I want to say it's the newest one that they did. They talk about how Hopper, I think he went to Vietnam, had that stuff on him, and I think that's what ends up killing his daughter. He kind of essentially gave her cancer because he was exposed to that. But also, they introduced this bad guy with higher levels of psychic abilities compared to 11, I think. And they have a similar thing with, like, I think it was mustard gas in, like, World War I or II, I think. When the dad came back and he was exposed to that, it caused some kind of mutation for the kid. But again, talking about like rabbit holes of conspiracies, that's actually based on, was it the Montauk Project? And that, just more psychic kids. It's like a hybrid thing of, it comes from, it's after like the Philadelphia Project, but mixed with, what's the other one? I think it was Project Tomahawk. But, you know, it has to do with like, MK Ultra, remote viewing, trying to create like psychic kids, just really horrible torture they went through, and that allegedly one day they hooked this kid up and somehow this monster appeared through this portal, but everyone saw something different and just massacred a bunch of people. Really crazy to dive into.
So through each person's perspective, it was a completely different monster.
Mm-hmm. I think some saw similar things, but some saw like different things. Supposedly, it's the creature's still there, or the portal is still open.
Have you ever? Did you ever read Chaos: The Secret History of the '60s CIA and Charles Manson?
No, but didn't Shane Cashman talk to the guy that wrote it in The Invisible World recently? I saw a couple of that clips, but no, I haven't read it.
Man, dude. I went into that book pretty skeptical. There's just so much insane evidence that kind of points to Charles Manson probably being a CIA asset.
Yeah, I think the guy I mentioned earlier, Aiden Mandis, does the Lower Lodge. I think he brought that up too, that the only way he kept getting away with stuff, because like he was on probation like the whole time he was creating his cult. So he should have been locked up way sooner.
Dude, I mean, like, literally they had him for murder. Like, this is like, he already had the family and stuff. And this one dude down the road owed them like $300 or something. And so him, Tex, and a couple of the girls, maybe a couple of the guys too, actually. They went down there, and they were just like, "You gonna give us the $300?" And he was kind of an asshole. He was like, "Go fuck yourself, whatever." And so Charles Manson was like, "Okay, go ahead and beat the shit out of him, then I'm gonna go ahead and shoot him." And so they just beat the shit out of him, take whatever money he has. Charles Manson puts a round in him. Cops hear the shot. They come by, arrest Manson. Manson is out on the streets that afternoon.
Yeah, like there's just so much stuff he should have been put away for that he wasn't. And the only logical conclusion was that he was an asset. Because, I mean, where else would you get that much drugs, too, to sustain, what, like 10, 20 years of activity?
And a lot of what happened at, like, the Tate House, things like that, it kind of adds up with what the CIA would want, because...
The whole helter-skelter, the race war?
Yeah, yes, and also, but what they did in particular was one of the things that Charles Manson told them to do was, after killing, every time, put a paw print in blood on the wall as a way to signify that it was actually the Black Panthers who did this. And so it was this whole idea, possibly, that the CIA wanted to have the public have this a much more fearful understanding of what the Black Panthers were about, because in their eyes, and maybe to an extent they're right, the Black Panthers' popularity would have created a popularity in some sort of communist socialist idea, because a lot of their thing was fucking up rich people, things like that. It was like really against like the powers that be. So it kind of does add up, and it also adds up into like Charles Manson's whole like race war thing, which that's kind of up in the air. There's some evidence that points to a lot of that was created in like a room with his lawyer. But it's just it's so crazy, because like, so the people they targeted. This is another reason why I think there's some validity to this. Everyone they targeted was a part of a group called the White Panthers. Do you know what that is?
No, I've never heard of that.
So the White Panthers, it was kind of like, think of it as like a celebrity BLM today, like a group of people who were just like really supportive of this group. And so they would have like these parties where they would invite, like, it would be like Jack Nicholson, Peter Fonda, Jane Dunaway, or Faye Dunaway, all these like huge heavy hitters like Peter Fonda, and they would have like Black Panthers over and just like be like this huge party where they were just like, you know, we're in support of you, we're like the Hollywood face of the Black Panthers. And it turned out, so like Tate was like a big part of that whole organization. Her and Roman Polanski would be basically the host of those parties all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so her death, basically what I think was supposed to be the idea was that even though the White Panthers were in complete support of the Black Panthers killed them anyway because they're white. And I think that was supposed to be like this underlining message that they wanted to get to the public, until too much evidence was kind of coming up against the family.
I mean, I don't know how much came from like the CIA, but I wouldn't say, that's kind of how it was in his book, Helter Skelter, I think, was that he wanted to start a race war, a race war would happen, that the blacks were smart enough to overtake the whites, but still dumb enough that they would need somebody to lead them, and it was going to be Charles Manson, So I think some of it was delusional, but also maybe, through the drugs, through MK Ultra, maybe there was some kind of programming that just went off the rails. So I want to say in the episode with Shane Cashman, the guy that wrote the book, they talked about this guy that essentially just went crazy, killed somebody or killed a few people and just had no memory.
Yeah, that's in the book. So, dude, so there's this guy named something. Jack. It's not Jack. I'm not thinking about Jack Ruby. It's something Rogers. Anyway, he was basically like the head guy of MK Ultra.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know exactly what story you're talking about. He goes to this military base. I forgot specifically where it's stationed. And there's this soldier who he's supposed to talk to for whatever reason. He just wants to talk to this soldier. And the soldier is perfectly, seemingly sane. Everyone likes this guy, from what I've understood. And so he goes in the room with Rogers, and they're in there for like 45 minutes to an hour. And suddenly, the soldier is like blood-curdlingly screaming. And they're like, what the fuck? And so they go into the room. Rogers is in the corner, kind of like stiff. And then under the table is the soldier, and he's like freaking the fuck out. And he keeps talking about how whatever's out there is going to come in here, and we can't have that happen. And so they kind of calm him down. He goes to bed. It's nighttime. Everyone's going to bed. Suddenly, there's screams, seemingly from a little girl, happening in the forest. And it's like 4 a.m. in the morning or something. And so a group of soldiers get together. I don't know if Rogers is there or not. And they go and they patrol, and they find that soldier with, like, a little girl dismembered, like, in many pieces in front of him. And he's on his knees crying and repeating, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? And he just, the way it's described was, he was here one moment, and then he was gone the next, and then he woke up.
Yeah, so it definitely seems like that was like successful mind control event, if that's what they were aiming for. But going back to like Manson and celebrities, it's crazy how many he met through his time. Like, was it Danny Trejo taught him guitar in prison or something?
That's true. I didn't know that.
That's something I've heard. People have brought it up. Like, there's just so many weird connections people had with him.
I think maybe he got better at guitar, but Manson was a musician. Manson actually wrote a Beach Boys song.
Maybe it's reversed. Maybe it was Manson taught him or something. But yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, he hung up with a musician. I think you mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy how much influence he kind of had, or connections.
Because I'm a screenwriter, like, there's been many times where I've thought about diving into a script that's like loosely based on their relationship, because like that had to be such an insane time. Like, because Brian Wilson in general is kind of crazy, but it's funny because like in I think it's in Chaos, they talk about their relationship a bit, and there was a point where Brian's like turning to one of his brothers in the band, and he's just like, I think we gotta stop hanging out with Charlie. Because he's just, there's something off about him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it is. And this is after they, like, made a deal with him. Like, they had, I don't think it was a single, but it was like a B-side, like, on one of their albums, or maybe like some sort of compilation. But they worked with him. He was kind of like a musician with the Beach Boys in a sense. But it was like Brian Wilson, of all people, like, I mean, he was insane at this point. He was just like, I'm getting a bad vibe from this guy.
Yeah. Did you ever watch that, the Quentin Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yeah, I love it, yeah.
I thought that was a good film, kind of like an alternative reality thing. But, yeah, going back to, like, the demons and stuff, I think it's crazy. You have that, and then the woman, he goes on to make Rosemary's Baby and stuff.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, dude. Fuck. And, like, that had to... I'm trying to think about the timeline on that.
I thought he wanted Tate to be in it, but then, that happened, but he still made it.
Dude, what a crazy movie to make right after that.
Mm-hmm.
If that's how that... Cause I couldn't picture the timeline, but if he shot that or made that right after that... I mean, Tate was pregnant when she died.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there had to have been some sort of draw...
I want to say the story is based on the book, but yeah, it's crazy that you would still go on and do that, being so close to that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's why it is as good as it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, that's so crazy. And then you have like it sucks too because it's like I feel bad for Roman Polanski in that situation, but then you hear about like things he's done, and you're like, oh, now you're tainting how I feel about you.
Yeah, like it sucks that happened, but also I don't think you're a good person.
Yeah, exactly. I can't even. What do you think? Is there anything else that we can talk about?
Well, one thing that popped in my head, because I was going to ask you what other cryptids you're into, I got to think of, like, the Fae and stuff. Some people say that's the feminine Nephilim, I think, kind of devolved into, like, the Fae and those sub-species and stuff, and then you have the more masculine, which is, like, the Bigfoot, the Dogman, kind of a thing.
I never even thought about that.
I think that's part of the 411, too, in the sense that maybe it could be the Fae taking people, because they find, like, the clothes just kind of scattered, and that's one thing I've heard, that for whatever reason, our clothes just can't go into their realm, and if you eat something there, you kind of stay there, and you're kind of stuck, but also, if you do come back, it could be so many years later.
I wonder, I would love, I mean, like, they may be an insane person, but, like, I would love to watch an interview or conduct an interview of someone who claims to have been over there for years and had to come back.
Well, there's the, the Huckamut Swamp. People who have studied that say there's some kind of, like, Fae activity there. If you leave offerings, if they accept, you get, like, a wish from them, but also they might just take you just 'cause.
Yeah, and it's like, I wonder what, you can't know. I was going to say, like, I wonder what it's like to be there, but not only to be there, but be surrounded by probably tons of whatever the fuck took you there.
Mm-hmm. Like the fairies, the gnomes, the, goblins and stuff.
So I haven't even gotten into, I don't even really know anything about that. So they're talking about, like, what are some conspiracies about fairies and goblins and stuff?
Just that they could be evil or just more like trickster kind of beings. They play tricks on you just for their own enjoyment. But yeah, that they basically could be the more feminine version, not version, but just the feminine bloodline of the Nephilim kind of shrinking down and becoming its own own thing.
It would be interesting if, like, that's why you'll see, like, a 8-foot tall person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the Nephilim was supposed to be, massive, and it kind of makes sense when you look through, what was it, the Canaanites, how David and his men went in to kill them. If they spread out, then that would make sense why there's so many different legends of giants and these other creatures.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Just devolving or, mating with other, creatures out there, and you can get all these different hybrids, minotaurs, centaurs, merman.
Yeah. Dude, this is a little off topic, but did you hear about them doing, I just heard they did, like, the first successful head transplant?
No, I haven't heard anything about that, but I want to say that's been something people have been trying for a long time. They've done it with, like, monkeys and dogs.
I think it was, like, with a person. I don't know for sure, but I think it was here. And I don't even know if that's legal.
I would get into some kind of, like, gray area of just because they consented doesn't make it right.
Yeah, and what's crazy is for it to work, they have to, like, get the head attached to the other body in, like, a certain time frame, or else it's all fucked.
But yeah, don't they say we have, like, 7 minutes of consciousness after we die?
Yeah, and it's, but just, I don't know, the idea of that is so bonkers. I remember, like, hearing, though, and this was conspiracy at the time, like, them talking about, like, China were doing, like, experiments on this, but they wouldn't, like, have very much information out there because they didn't want, like, I don't know, maybe, like, internet.
Well, yeah, like, China and, like, the Russia have, like, the ape-man super soldier projects and stuff.
Oh, I don't know if I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, it was like Cold War, kind of like trying to create like a super soldier, combining human and ape DNA to make them stronger.
Wow.
But no, talking about the head plants, I think that ties into like the idea of the homunculus. If you can put your head or your consciousness into an artificial body, you would be stronger, faster, be able to live longer. Essentially, kind of going back to the time before the flood. Because I want to say in the Bible, that's when people stopped living as long or something.
Yeah, it was around the time of the flood, yeah. And I think that was because...
Like Noah was like 900 years old or something.
Yeah, there's a few instances where it'll be like someone's like 500 or 900 years old, and Noah definitely was in his 900s. But yeah, it was. I think God even like talks about how after the flood, he was just like, I need to put a cap on this thing. Like, this is... People are living too long. They're doing too many crazy-ass things.
What else?
I remember it was probably 2010, 2009. I remember hearing, like, on the news, like, them talking about an exoskeleton suit that people could, if they wore it, would be able to pick up, like, tree trunks out of the ground.
I mean, I don't know how accurate that is, but yeah, I want to say over the past like 20 years, the idea of an exoskeleton has become more and more plausible for like soldiers to be able to carry heavy equipment and whatnot.
Yeah, like I guess like the reason why it wasn't being mass produced back 10 years ago or whatever was because they needed a power. There was like an extension that they needed to be attached to that was like connected to this huge power source. And I guess unless you're able to detach from that, there's not really much use out of it. They would have to figure out to have some sort of way where it can like hold on to energy.
Yeah, battery technology has to improve for I think a lot of things to become a reality.
Yeah.
Which I think that ties into a lot of the ancient astronaut things about like the pyramids being power plants and stuff. I think the ancients were a little bit more advanced than we give them credit for.
Yeah. I mean, it would make sense because it's like each of those stones that they build the pyramids with. I mean, it's like thousands of pounds or some crazy shit, and it's just like you're not pulling that.
They come up with so many different ways to try to explain it, like the logs, or just they waited for it to flood and they can carry it down the river or whatever.
The guy I work with, he's kind of wild. He thinks that 100% it's aliens. He's like there's no doubt in my mind.
Well, I want to say it was one of the sons of Cain that actually became like a great architect because he was taught by the angels, the watchers that came down. So I think in some aspects that's true.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Right. Because I mean, God would have had some sort of influence at that time. I mean, obviously. But, I mean, because that was like Moses' times, like when they were putting the pyramids together. Yeah. Well, you think we should call it?
We can. We've been going for a little over 2 hours. I think we've kind of reached the cap for now.
Yeah, no, that was a really fun podcast. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, yeah, thanks for coming on. It was really cool. Most of the time, and some of the other ones I've done, I'm just listening to them, but this one, I feel like it was a lot more engaging. Yeah,
no, it was really fun. I learned a lot. It was really cool. I would love to come on again sometime, and you can come on Primitive State anytime for sure.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have enough followers to go live, but I mean, if you ever have like a live thing, maybe I can hop on.
Okay, yeah, sure. I don't even think I have enough followers for that.
I thought you only needed like 50 subscribers, so
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll look into it then. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, I'll let you know. I'll have a little bit more stuff written down, prepared that we haven't talked about. But yeah, thank you for coming on. Do you have anything? Do you want to shout out your podcast one more time?
Yeah, go ahead. Check out the Primitive State Podcast. I'm at Troy PS Podcast on Twitter. It's also my handle on YouTube. Go ahead and give me a subscribe. Check it out. Hope you like it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe, like, share, and I'll see you guys around. All right. Thanks, man.
For sure.